Hey, I write about Thelema and occult matters online, which means I do run into people who are currently experiencing psychotic episodes. I don't actually mind that. I've been fascinated with psychosis and its relation to religiosity since I had my first psychotic break. That's talked about in a recent video, actually, you can go see it. And the thing that strikes me most about psychosis is that it's not always a bad thing. At least it can be transformed into an actually, genuinely, and legitimately good thing. He burped, I got scared. We find shaman in all cultures, and most cultures also have religious saints who have experienced visions at various points in time. These can be induced by simple meditation or by consumption of certain naturally occurring substances. And it's generally acknowledged that both of those formed an important part in the foundation of religion. But I would like to say that psychosis did as well. And that's a good thing. It's unlikely that we would have been able to form into groups larger than the Dunbar number if we didn't have religion or something similarly grand to rally around. Individual people can do that, but they do pass on. What then? Ancestor cults are obviously one answer, but it's not the only answer. And the creation, or the acknowledgement, if you're so inclined, of gods and spirits is one of the good ways to create or to recognize an enduring avatar of various principles and values that a culture can rally around and transmute itself inside of to live lives that are larger than any individual can manage with the short time of human lifespans. Psychosis was part of how this started. I was talking to one such today. Nice guy, honestly. I assume it's a guy. But he initially started out ranting and raving a little bit. My first instinct, like I think everyone's first instinct, was to avert my eyes, click to another page, and not say anything. But I eventually went back and engaged him. I said, "You're running hot. Making connections is good. It allows us to deepen and broaden our thoughts. It helps us identify problems and find their solutions. But it is equally important to center ourselves, focus on the big picture, and sink into the calmness of no thought and the immediacy of present, current, physical experiences. You'd refine your perspectives and feel more peace if you pursued those goals rather than spiraling quite so much on connected notions and stories. These things are fine. Nothing wrong with contemplating them, but balance is essential." And I actually mean everything that I said. Excellent thoughts have come out of psychotic states. Half of the beautiful insights that Carl Jung came up with came from his own exploration of deliberately induced psychotic episodes. And I've learned a great deal from mine as well. That's the whole reason I induced the second one. The first one was an accident, but if you learn to control it, if you can go in and out at any given time, it's not actually dangerous because you know what's going on. You don't think, oh, these spirits are going around going to attack me. I need to attack someone in real life to get back at them. No, that doesn't happen when you know you're entering into a temporary state and when you can bring yourself back. The fundamental problem with psychosis that sets in on its own is that we have no control over it. We can't stop it any more than we can start it again deliberately. That's a problem. It's a problem because psychosis creates multiple different symptom clusters that are difficult to get around. One is making it difficult to discern the difference between what's going on inside our heads and what's going on in the world outside. In my own experience, this often led to difficulty interpreting what people meant when they were saying things. I would read secondary or tertiary meanings that were of personal significance to me but had nothing to do with what they were actually trying to communicate. And I would often respond in kind, saying things that did not literally make sense, but came from a process of logic inside my head that they were not privy to and thus could not comprehend. This is common in psychosis, so when I didn't understand everything that this person was saying, I wasn't actually concerned. I caught a lot of the broad strokes because if you are interested in the occult and religion, you run into the thought processes that a lot of these people run into because they're trying to find the answers to similar questions to what people who founded these sorts of explanatory systems of occult learning and religion would have had when they started hearing angels or demons or whatever talk inside their heads. And that can lend them a sense of normalcy, because if they're just being talked to by spiritual beings, if they're just interacting with gods, well then they're not crazy. Plenty of people do that. It's a normal aspect of human life, and they're not wrong. But one needs to recognize these things as spiritual, not physical, and not demanding physical action that won't necessarily and definitively be helpful for all of the people involved. A vision promoting you to engage in charity, helping the poor because you think a god will punish you if you don't, that's fine, because even if the god is not real, you still did real good. You may have harmed yourself a little bit, but considering the benefits to society, you should do it more. Harming people, harming oneself, these are totally different. Like Abraham with Isaac before God intervened with a ram. No, that's not good. We don't want to encourage or praise that. I don't care what Kierkegaard said or how much I loved his arguments when I was young. I still have it over there. And we have either or right here on my bookshelf, and there's philosophical fragments. Like, he was my favorite, but he was wrong. Especially with Fear and Trembling. But I was talking to him, and I know from my own research, and this has only accumulated since I originally learned about it, that certain meditation tactics can calm down and reverse the progress of schizophrenia and psychosis. It can bring you back to earth. I use these whenever I see myself spiraling out, as well as, of course, backing off of the practices that I know provoke those responses in me. And it's basically just grounding yourself, sticking with your physical sensations. And because he ultimately was receptive, I did tell this person about these tactics. I didn't tell them what it was or what they were rooted in or why I thought he could use this specifically. I don't think it's helpful to disabuse people of their illusions. There's a common phrase in psychology, resist the writing impulse. And you do need to do that, because if you push back too hard against people, they will just assume you're ignorant, or you hate them, or you're part of whatever evil powers they might theoretically believe exists. And that wasn't my goal. I wanted to actually help. I don't know if it will. I don't know if he's going to do it. But he at least has empirically supported tools that can help him calm down the temperature in his brain a little bit and live a slightly better life, which is all I was going for. Not having control of your own mind is terrifying, which is why I found it so encouraging when I saw research that's saying certain types of meditation have been shown to reverse the intensity and severity of positive schizophrenia symptoms. That's hallucinations, delusions, as opposed to like the affect changes and things like that. And why I was further encouraged when I saw more studies repeated showing more of that effect in more and more cohorts, which is why I went ahead and shared that with this guy. But we have no idea what we're doing while treating schizophrenia. We don't. And I think that the fear that so many doctors have of psychosis, not all of them, I've actually talked to 3 different healthcare providers about my experiences, and they're just like, that's fine. Watch it, obviously, but that's fine. But a lot of the times they are terrified of it, and you can tell they are, and I understand why they are. People with psychosis are unpredictable, especially if they feel offended by you or discredited or disbelieved by you. They often turn on you, and if you are diagnosing a person's psychic or psychological experiences as necessarily invalid as a sickness that needs to be remedied because the symptom of having that kind of mental experience itself is pathological and unacceptable, yeah, they're not going to be happy with you. And that's going to make them feel scared, and that can make them turn into themselves and focus more on the delusions and more on the hallucinations, and that, of course, will make the symptoms worse. Modern psychology mostly solves this problem by throwing mind-numbing medications at people. These literally change the structure of the brain and are known to reduce IQ points. So does psychosis that's untreated. Let's not lose sight of that. But it's not encouraging when any mode of treatment we have, or non-treatment for that matter, leads to roughly the same outcome in the long term. And these drugs, they have horrible, horrible side effects. They directly target dopamine in the brain much of the time, which means that very often you can't enjoy anything. At least that's what I saw in my partner. I tried them once for anxiety, and I couldn't stay awake, which is also not ideal. But they're basically tranquilizers that cause brain damage. They're not just that. They're basically a more modern form of lobotomies, which, as barbaric as they were, did help some people in a real way, not just by making them more manageable, but by helping them manage their systems while retaining some degree of function. Modern antipsychotics are much better than lobotomies while producing some similar effects of the best case scenarios. I'm not saying no one should take them. If you have psychosis that you cannot manage without them, do take them. They're very useful drugs. But they are basically the dark ages of medication. It's like treating mania with mercury concoctions. If it helps, great. But we need to find something better. And the better thing that the new research is suggesting that I ran across, that I use when I start running a little hot from doing too many rituals or reading too much of that particular type of poetry, is grounding meditation, focusing on senses, sight, touch, feeling the ground around you. Bring yourself back to those experiences that don't involve active thought, because schizophrenia is largely about drawing excessive connections between various points of information. It's seeing a link where a link does not really exist, or the link is tenuous or symbolic or poetic, rather than the literal way that they tend to be experienced during psychosis. In particular, you see a lot of people connecting themselves, which is of course the center of all of our worlds, with various different facts and stimuli. This is why people can hear a song on the radio and think the song is talking specifically to them. And it may be telling them something valuable, but it may also be amplifying their fears. And that's not good either. What I think we need for appropriate schizophrenia treatment is training, charity, humility, the ability to question oneself and one's own thoughts and perceptions, the ability to question the links that we draw between things logically and intuitively, and the ability to better manage our emotional reactions so that even when we see a skeleton jumping out of the floor and clawing at us, we aren't necessarily terrified because we're pretty sure it's not physically going to hurt us. And that anything that it means is something that we can address when we're a little bit more clear-headed. It's not an emergency, just the way that a dream isn't an emergency if you know that you're dreaming. And one of the best tools we found for that, according to modern research, is that specific type of meditation I was talking about. These are the treatments, these are the therapeutic models that I want to see employed for people experiencing psychosis. They're the models that I use to control what I experience, which I have no idea how crazy I am, but my therapists aren't worried. And I know that similar tools also reduce the harm that my partner can do when he experiences hallucinations or delusions. I think that's all I actually wanted to say, to express frustration over the state of schizophrenia research and to demonstrate that there are positive ways to help people deal with it in ways other than just completely shutting down their brain with incredibly strong medications. Because I want everyone to be able to make their mark on the world, and when we're shut down by chemistry or by our own mind taking over and controlling what we think and see and feel, it's very difficult to do that. Regaining control by learning to question our thoughts, by learning to check our emotions, feeling them, acknowledging them, but questioning them and interrogating them as well. And choosing our reactions based upon what we actually think rather than trying to hide what we actually think is excellent. Reducing symptoms, also important, but again, the meditation has been shown to do a lot of that. It won't help everyone. Therapy talk therapy doesn't help everyone either. But this is what I've seen work for myself, the people around me, and a lot of the people that I've talked to. And I think it could work for others too. So yeah, let's hope professionals catch on. There's nothing inherently wrong with having non-standard neurological experiences if it doesn't make you make silly and stupid decisions, if it doesn't hurt the way you're going through life, and if it doesn't emotionally distress you. There are tools that can make life livable for many people with psychosis, in addition to or instead of medication, which is good because not everyone can tolerate that stuff. All right, yeah, let's just hope we improve. That's all I wanted to say. You all have a nice day. Do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law. Love is the law. Love under will.